Welcome back to another episode of the PB podcast, as I have decided to finally get back to recording here. Now, um, today I'm trying a little bit of a different thing where I actually pre-recorded the gameplay. And this time I'm just gonna be going over the topic while the gameplay goes on in the background. We're gonna continue my discussion on my experience DMing, starting off where I left off with my several questions I had set aside. So, I suppose here we shall start. I hope you enjoy this video. So, what strategies do I use to keep my players engaged and invested in the story? Frankly, I didn't really think about it often. I really should have thought about keeping players engaged more than I did. And that's probably why a lot of my campaigns dwindled pretty quickly. Though I did, as I said in the last video, I liked to do the whole blessings thing. And for one of the campaigns, I did a very in-depth backstory thing for each of the players, where all of them, at some point or another, ran into a version of a fortune teller or someone who tells the future. And that person basically granted them the blessing and sent them to the place that they were supposed to meet the other players. And I mean, I went real creative with that. I had written out whole things where, like, one of them was wandering the streets of some marketplace and came across a simple fortune teller's tent that, with like the classic crystal ball sort of thing and tarot card reading. Which that one, and more specifically, I had used to because they had played a character in a previous campaign, and that character had gotten a bunch of useful stuff in that campaign, and so I went to try to explain why and how they would have lost all that stuff. I made it so that the tarot cards that they drew for the tarot reading were actually cards from the deck of many things, very specifically Ruin and there's this other one that basically there's two, that one that removes all your material wealth except for magic items, and one that removes all your magic items. So yeah, both of them pretty bad. But it was necessary to set them up for the campaign, because they would have, like, because they basically made off with like a ton of money and magic items and stuff in the previous campaign, so I needed to create a reason why they would continue adventuring. I think they were playing like a changeling illusionist, which I think was a very interesting character concept. I found it very interesting. Either that or was a bard. I don't remember. I don't remember what blessings I gave them. I probably could find it out if I were to look at my notes for that campaign. That, funnily enough, is the notes that shows up every time that I try to open a Google Doc. It's the default when I put it in docs.google.com, and it's the document that pops up every time, even though I used it for like a total of like 2 sessions. So yeah, Well, maybe not 2 sessions. It might have been a little bit more than 2 sessions. Anyhow, another one of the lenses, like, there was one of those traveling carts, fortune-telling carts, or whatever those are called, with the sort of snake oil salesman sort of fortune-telling cart. Maybe not specifically snake oil salesman, but it's that kind of vibe where they got the cart that travels from place to place, and they tell the fortunes. And then there was one that they stumbled into a cave where there was an oracle that had written all sorts of prophecies on the walls. And then there was one that stumbled onto a path to a mysterious wizard's tower. Each of these fortune tellers being pretty similar to each other in order to tie them together. And at first I thought that was a pretty cool way to link all of the party members together and create this general mystery of who is employing the entire party to delve into the Thunder Mountain, and why they might be doing so, and what power they are granting to the party, and how they are granting this power to the party. And it was intended to be a consistent thing that throughout the dungeon they would see this the influence of this this being, though and it did for a bit. I mean, there was a time that one of the players unfortunately saved really bad against an intellect devourer. Yeah, they had a very poor save against an intellect devourer, and well, had their intelligence reduced to 0, and were basically permanently stunned until the effect was removed. After which the party conveniently ran into a scroll of what's it called? Awakening. Basically, it's a spell that allows you to grant a creature with an any beast or creature with an intelligence less than like 4, with an intelligence of 10. And so they basically restored the party member by giving them new sentience, which I thought that was amusing, which was the whole reason why I gave them the scroll, because otherwise they would have to get a greater restoration spell, and it's the same level of spell as a greater restoration. But back to the question at hand, in terms of strategies to keep players engaged and invested, I really needed to, if I were to go back into DMing, I would need to think about that more, as that was something that I didn't really consider, and as much as I really should have. And honestly, on the other side of that coin, it would help for me to find strategies to keep myself engaged and invested in the story, as that is, I think, one of the primary reasons why the whole campaign generally died, because of my because I lost in engagement with the campaign and the story. I became unengaged, unenthused by it. Now, how do I balance combat and role-playing elements in my sessions? Frankly, I've never been very good at balancing. uh, and I am very much of the fan of let the parties dominate. Let the players absolutely destroy the opposition, because it's fun to destroy the opposition and to basically a power game. It appears that my music stopped because I forgot to loop it. And while I did try to encourage role playing a lot, and that there was a lot of role playing that did occur, especially between players. I did like to, because I was playing the Dungeon of the Mad Mage module, a lot of the role playing came from basically setting the scene and then having the players and asking the players what they wanted to do. I did generally find that they didn't always know what they wanted to do. And so I did have to encourage them in certain ways. And in terms of the combat in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I didn't really touch any of the what creatures were present in the dungeon. However, I did try to utilize tactics from a book that I have called "The Monsters Know What They're Doing," in which the creatures would be acting and reacting according to how they should logically act and react to these various situations. Usually to quite deadly effect. But as the party, one of them was like a Twilight Domain cleric who had absolutely maximized their passive perception. Or it might not even been the Twilight cleric that had done that. It might have been like the monk. I think was actually kind of partially insane. Anyhow, they had a massive passive perception, which I quickly found out was much higher than pretty much every DC for discovering a secret door in the entire Dungeon of the Mad Mage by default. Which did mean that I got to basically just describe to them exactly what was in every room. Did make some things easier on me. But in terms of combat, other than I didn't add or subtract any creatures from any encounter. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why the party ended up with the one of the party members getting their mind lost. And frankly, despite how powerful the party was, there were several encounters that did greatly challenge them. I mean, they did cheese very many of the encounters after a while by using rope trick and moonbeam, because rope trick is a great spell and moonbeam happens to work very well against the various shape changers that are on the first floor of the dungeon of the Mad Mage. Is there's a bunch of doppelgangers posing as Thins, and then there was this golem that they hid inside of it because it has no ranged attack option and it has no ability to get up to the roof. They just hid in the rope trick and had a and constantly just moved around, like would peek out, move around the moonbeam, and well, continuously just attack it, or well, just whittle it down. Of course, that flesh golem, they did have a bit of difficulty with it for a bit because one of the party members, he wasn't that intelligent, so I let him do this. But he cast Witch Bolt onto the flesh golem because he forgot that they had forgot. She forgot. No, wait. It might have been he. Yeah, they, whichever one it was, forgot that that flesh golems regenerate health from lightning damage. And so they basically were spending their turns every turn healing up the flesh golem, much to the frustration of one of the other party members who also didn't realize that it was healing from it. And they were like dishing out these huge hits, and the golem was just not dying. And they were confused why it was just not dying. Before I finally before they finally noticed that, oh wait, the lightning is healing it. To which point they were like, oh, I completely forgot about that. That was a fun time. But yeah, long story short, I didn't really think about making encounters be very balanced, because it was the sort of thing as like, if the encounter was too powerful, then it was a good chance to if the encounter was too hard or very difficult, then it was very difficult and they had fun. If it was very easy, they got to curb stomp them and have lots of fun curb stomping a bunch of enemies. Plus, there was always the opportunity to, for the most part, there was usually the opportunity to talk to an enemy before fighting said enemy. Of course, there are animalistic enemies that, or bestial enemies that are less interested in talking. But generally, if it was sentient, it was willing to talk, at least for a bit. As long as they didn't give an immediate reason for for it to attack them, at least. Or that if the book didn't specify that they would be specifically looking out to attack the party. What advice would I give to a DM starting out in D&D 5e? Uh, Frankly, I think it's important to when I was doing because I helped write out this kind of curriculum thing for other DMs in a for a as a service thing for one of my classes that I where they do DM for high school students or junior high students. I don't know. Uh, Unfortunately, I was unable to actually participate because I didn't have a car at the time. But I think one of the biggest points that I came to was that it's important to remember that the game is about working with your players to create a fun story and an enjoyable story for everyone, and to avoid making the game into a fight between players and the DM. Because as soon as it's a fight between DM and players, it's no longer fun. Or at least it will quickly become no longer fun. And I'm also the sort who is absolutely down to encourage any sort of shenaniganry from a player, because I'm one who loves to do shenaniganry in when I play as a player. So I completely understand when somebody wants to do something that's absolutely busted or hilariously broken. How do I create and develop NPCs and their backstories? In most of the campaigns that I've run, they've been pre-made characters for the NPCs. I mean, there were definitely a few that were standouts compared to others. I had fun with in the one time I did the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. The party fell in love with a particular pair of drow twins. I think they hired them or something to run a couple of their franchise locations. They're Dusty Cheeses, which was a blatant ripoff of Chuck E. Cheese. It was a child casino for a children restaurant and entertainment. Then that was a whole fun storyline. That also involved a Breaking Bad reference at some point, as they, I think during that campaign, in order to create more variety in, in order to create more variety in NPCs, I basically, I got this book that was basically a random NPC generator, and they came across a clockwork lich, and they which they had a whole thing with that. They also came across a oh, what was it called?